to roll with the punches here.
Season finale of the ZTV Sports Report, your home for all things Akron Zips athletics. On today's episode, we're going to be concluding our coverage of our spring sports, along with an interview featuring lacrosse player Alexis Kiefer. For the last time this semester, and my last time ever, I'm Max Arisi.
I'm Zach Leininger.
And this is the ZTV Sports Report. We're going to start our show with coverage on the recent baseball series against Central Michigan. Let's take it over to Megan and see how they did.
Hi everyone, it's Megan with the ZTV Sports Report, and today I will be talking about the baseball team. I will be covering their most recent 3-game series today, so let's see how they are doing. In their most recent series, the Zips were at home taking on Central Michigan. Akron could not overcome Central Michigan and lost all 3 games. The first game ended with a score of 5-3, the second game score was 16-5, and then the final game ended with a score of 3-0. Now let's take a look at these games individually. The first game, Akron started out strong and kept the Chippewas from scoring until the 4th inning. In the top of the 4th, however, Central Michigan got things started, scoring the first run off of a single to right field. Akron answered back in the bottom of the 4th, though, with 3 runs, with Jack Poist, Sam Seeker, and Braden Cavey all driving in an RBI for the team. Central Michigan added another run in the top of the 5th, cutting the Zips' lead down to 1. From there, the pitching battle continued, with both teams shutting each other out through the 8th inning. Central Michigan took the lead in the top of the 9th, though, scoring the last 3 runs of the game, earning themselves the first win of the series. After a tough 16-5 loss for the Zips, in the second game, the 2 teams met for one last game. The third game was another defensive battle, with neither team scoring until the 6th inning. Central Michigan took the lead in the top of the 6th inning, scoring 2 runs off of an error by the Zips. After Akron continued to struggle at the plate, Central Michigan added a home run in the top of the 8th, sealing a 3-0 victory. This has been Megan with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips!
Thank you, Megan. So, Zach, it was unfortunate they couldn't get any wins in that series. Granted, I don't even feel like they really played that bad. They were keeping Central pretty close, a lot of the way through, but they just could never really find that headway to break through and, take control of the series.
And it's just tough looking into the first game, though, because, we saw Tortorella on the mound there. He pitched an absolute amazing 5 innings. And, for this game, Akron's winning the game through 8 innings. And just in the top of that 9th, they fell apart and played completely different than they did the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a season-long trend we've seen almost. Obviously, there's been inconsistencies throughout game-to-game performances, but I think even in a single game, they can maybe start out really good and then not hold it up for 9 innings, or they maybe start out really bad and they kind of work their way back, but never make it, all the way.
Yeah, like they're really good, but it's like it's a type of thing where, like, when they're on, but when they're off, they're off.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, I feel like it's been hard for them, for the pitching and the hitting to kind of be in sync at the same time. I feel like there's so many games where maybe the starting pitcher has a really solid game. Tortorella or Roth comes out, has a really good game, but those are always the games where the hitters don't do anything. We need to find that consistency where, we get every aspect of the game working together,
And unfortunately, when that in the rest of that series, it just all the things that went wrong in the end of that first game, it crept into the second game because went from a 5-3 game, it was 16-5 in the second game. Gave up 8 runs in the third inning and just completely fell apart. It seems like.
Yeah, and I do think you got to look at this team on the whole. I don't think they have quite the depth on the mound that you would like to, because they have the 2 pretty consistent starters in Sammy Tortorella and Joe Roth, 14 games started and 11 games started respectively, but they have about 10 other pitchers that have at least made a few performances, and none of them have really, solidified themselves as important pieces to this rotation, which you're not. I've used this phrase so many times on the Sports Report, but you're not going to win games that way, So, I don't know. They need more depth on the mound because, even Tortorella maybe goes out, has a really good start, gives you 6-7 quality innings. They might have trouble closing that out, once the relief comes in.
Yeah.
So that's something. And with that, it's just going to need time to get new recruits in, develop the talent that you currently have. So.
And again, when we talked about this team earlier in the season, Sabo was gone right after last season. So bringing in a new coach this year, it was like, we're expecting them to be. The expectations were a little lower, trying to get used to a new team. Yeah. And things are they've been gelling here and there, hit or miss.
I mean, probably half the starting lineup is, new talent from this season. Thinking of returning players, we got Nick Arrivo, Ian Pennington, Sam Seeker, and Kite O'Hara. But past that, this offense is very, very new. Yeah. And like you said, I think a lot of that, goes with Sabo leaving last year. I know Cameron Benson, who was the freshman shortstop last year, he transferred out. So there's always going to be that turnaround with the coaching staff. And I do have to give credit. I think they have a lot of really solid offensive players in this lineup. Jack Poist, he started 41 games and he's hitting .319. He's the only every game starter hitting above that 300 mark, which is really nice. And you got to give props to Brendan Cavey as well, because he really wasn't playing too much earlier in the season. They were kind of still had some kinks to work out with that middle infield. But I think Kite O'Hara has settled into shortstop pretty nicely, and they threw Brendan Cavey over at second. And ever since he's come in, dude, he's been really, really good offensively and defensively. He's kind of been that, don't know the right word for it, but he's been that player that kind of comes out of nowhere and makes really solid contributions.
Just that spark, really.
He's been that spark, yeah. So that's nice to see him coming in. And then, the rest of their core is playing good, but nobody's super standing out. They got a lot of people right around that 250, 260 mark. I mean, obviously Arrivo, Seeker, Pennington, those are some really solid names, but a little more consistency maybe.
And just another player to shout out here while we're at it. Jack Firestone. I know his stats are I guess his stats and his play, I guess, don't really seem to coincide. Like, looking at his stats, he looks like, really solid. He's had some rough games in here, but even on that, he ended up just a couple games ago here set the single season home run record, 15 home runs for the team. So just being that heavy hitter is just something they've needed.
Yeah, that's something you cannot overstate. All-time season leader in home runs. And I mean, granted, like, he's got a lot of strikeouts. He has 73 strikeouts on the season, which is almost double. The next highest is 40. So, like, that's tough. But those 15 home runs, they make up for it.
Yeah.
You're going to have those hitters, very high home run and strikeout ratios.
Yeah. And you have to respect the confidence, really.
Yeah.
It's like when, I guess similar in basketball, just like, your main guys, they're a lot of time your big scorers are the ones that are putting a lot of attempts in. So it's like, he's swinging the bat a lot.
Yeah.
Sure, he's not, making contact every single time, but he's making big plays.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And, moving forward, obviously this team isn't going to be competing for a championship this season or anything like that, but I think they have a lot of very quality pieces to work with and continue to develop. And you think they're going to get some new players as well. Hopefully they hopefully they don't lose any transfers. But moving forward, I'll be honest, I feel good about this team. This season, honestly, was probably better than I was expecting. So that in itself is a positive. And moving forward, let's see how they do.
Yeah.
So, we're going to take it into our first commercial break now. When we come back, we'll be jumping into softball.
You're watching ZTV.
Akron After Hours this season, we're doing things a little differently.
Some water.
Where'd he go? Oh, whoa!
How are you? I'm good. You heard anything?
You're gonna cut me off, at least use your turn signal.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
You're watching ZTV.
Welcome back. Zach took a look at the recent softball series against Bowling Green, so let's take it over to him for that coverage.
What's going on, everybody? Zach Leininger here, and today we'll be diving into the Zips softball team and see how they did in the recent series against Bowling Green. After a dominating 10-2 performance by Akron in the first game, the Zips looked to carry that momentum into the second game. Akron came out swinging in the first inning, driving in 4 runs to set the tone early. Alexa DeFeo pitched an absolute gem, keeping the Falcons scoreless through their first 3 at-bats. The Zips then added on to their lead in the bottom of the third after Tiffany Stevens smashed a double into right center. DeFeo went back to work, continuing to shut Bowling Green's offense down as the game moved into the 5th inning. Akron continued to get the best of Bowling Green as they forced an error, scoring 2 more runs to extend their lead 7-0. After 6 complete innings, Bowling Green finally got one over on DeFeo after a solo shot brought the game to within 6. Fortunately, the Zips were able to regroup and collect the last 2 outs of the game, securing a 7-1 win. Moving into Game 3, Bowling Green looked to avoid the series sweep as they jumped out to an early 1-0 lead. Bowling Green continued to build momentum as they held Akron scoreless through the first 2 innings. The momentum quickly shifted in the bottom of the 3rd inning as the Zips drove in 4 runs on 6 hits to take a 3-run lead. To add insult to injury, the Zips one-upped themselves, putting up a staggering 7 runs in the bottom of the 4th, crushing any hope the Falcons had left. Olivia Otani took the mound in the 5th inning, cleaning up the last 3 outs of the game, earning Akron the 11-1 win as well as the series sweep. The Zips now find themselves on an 8-game winning streak as they look to continue to carry this momentum through the end of the season. This has been Zach Leininger with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips.
Zach, I gotta say, man, that's the capabilities of this softball team on full display. Granted, Bowling Green is not the best MAC team. They have 1 conference win all season up to this point. But if you're the Zips, they didn't stoop down, and they played to the ceiling that they're capable of playing, and as a result, they got that series sweep.
They had everything going that game. Was DeFeo on the mound that game? Croyle.
Game 1, we had a Croyle.
Yeah, Croyle on the mound. Yeah.
Yeah.
Croyle was just she's been amazing for them so far this season, and as we've talked, they have a really solid group of batters just up and down the roster there, and they seem to gel really well scoring wise, and that complements the pitching.
Yeah, their offensive game plan, game in and game out, is super solid, and I think they have the lineup that complements that perfectly. Because you watch one Zip softball game, and it's very apparent this is a contact-oriented team. They're not looking to hit it over the fence. They're looking to get on base, get those runners moving, and just get some runs in.
Yeah.
And their hitters complement that. Brooke Civic, Molly McChesney, and Megan Lee, those top 3 hitters are all lefties, all with some speed, and they're going to give you very consistent contact and on-base averages. And that paves the way for the bigger hitters, Alexis Campbell, Laurel DeVoe, and Abigail Scheller, to come in and really score those runs. So I think they just have an amazing dynamic. And just looking at that first game against Bowling Green, all 3 of those top 3 batters had 2 hits. Campbell also had 2, DeVoe had 1, and Scheller had 3. So that's just it's a great dynamic they have with this offense, but they're not top-heavy either. You look at the bottom of their order, Tiffany Stevens, Madison Dudek, Jaden Bryant. They're not typical bottom of the lineup hitters. They're quality as well, and they're going to get on base for that top of the order to really, do some damage against these teams.
Yeah, and especially in this series, when they scored in bunches. It's a big thing. It seems like they pretty much won these games in a couple innings, and Bowling Green just had no answer really.
Yeah, and dude, on the whole, this team is. Not only are they really good, granted they're only a little bit over 500, but I feel like they kind of just needed some time to find their groove. But I'm so excited about this team moving forward because they have so many freshmen. If you look at their main contributors on the season, more than you would think are freshmen. Brooke Civic, she's batting .343. She's a freshman. Abigail Scheller, she leads the team in home runs. She's a freshman. Haley Croyle, the ace in the circle for the Zips, has been a freshman. So it's nice to know, regardless of how this season ends, they're going to be on the come up for years to come.
And it's been exciting to watch just because with Craig Nicholson coming in as the first-year head coach for this team, it seemed that we weren't sure how this team was going to go. But it seems that they not really proved us wrong, but I guess maybe proved us right in a way. Just that the team came ready to play. They seem to really rally around Craig there, and it creates a really well-oiled machine, really.
Yeah, I had the chance to not sit down, but chat with Craig Nicholson for a few minutes before one of their games a few weeks ago. And just from talking to him for 2 minutes, you just get the sense that this is the guy. He's got the right mindset to lead this team to victory, and in terms of actual tactics and softball strategy, he knows what he's doing, and I think we've seen that in the performance of the team this season.
Definitely. Just he seems to bring the energy the team needs, and he creates that game plan for the team, and they execute it. They execute it well. Sure, they have again as any team, they have games where they're not so good, but they have really good games, and they just seem to play really well in between. So
I'll be honest, the only series I'm not going to let them off the hook was that Kent State series earlier in the season, because they won game 1. They were in the driver's seat for game 2, and they let Kent come back in the very last inning and win it. And then Kent went on to win that series. And I only bring that up because this would have been the first series win in quite a long time against Kent State. So The fact that they were so close and didn't pull it out, but
I mean that was similar also to the Ball State series. If we're looking back on things here, it's just they took the first game and they had the second game in the bag there, and just gave it away. And then with that third game, that third game I just had to bring it up because that was like the most exciting softball I've ever seen. Just neck and neck the whole game, and it was like somebody eventually was going to take the lead, and unfortunately Ball State won that. But there's so many performances that they're hanging their hat on, and we just have to be happy with what they've done so far.
And I'll be honest, at the end of the day, putting aside like the actual performances of this team, like you watch them for 5 minutes and you can just tell that this is a team that enjoys playing together. They love the group that they're in, and they just have the chemistry that meshes so well and ultimately leads to victories. So, I mean, this team is awesome. I think their record could be so much better than 26-22, but granted, with such a new team on the whole, new coaching staff, so many freshmen, as we mentioned, it might take some time to find like their ceiling. But I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to get there. And I think a year or two from now, we could be looking at a team that's going to be competing to win the MAC.
Definitely a solid foundation has been built this season.
Absolutely.
We'll look to see that carried on in the future. So.
Very excited for next season and
for sure.
See how they do. So it's time for our second commercial break now. But when we come back, we'll discuss the lacrosse team and take a look at Katie's interview with Alexis Kiefer. Stay tuned.
You're watching ZTV.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out."
You're watching ZTV.
Welcome back. Katie recently interviewed lacrosse teammate Alexis Kiefer, so let's go ahead and check in with them.
What's up, everyone? It's Katie Bummer here with the ZTV Sports Report, and today I'm joined with Alexis Kiefer from the women's lacrosse team. How are you doing today, Alexis?
I'm good, Katie. How are you?
Great, thanks. So midway through your season, you hit 100 goals. What was that moment like for you?
It was really bittersweet. I think I just felt so much like I was overcome with so much love and trust from my teammates, and that they always trusted me that I was going to get the ball in the back of the net.
Okay, so now that you're graduating, what do you think the legacy for this senior class wanted to leave on this program?
I think that there's two main things. I think first would be just like a positive culture, that we're always uplifting our teammates, cheering each other on, being as proud of each other as we can. And I think the other thing is just giving 110% on the field, in practice, in the weight room, and just always putting so much effort forth.
What was your experience like being a captain for the past 3 years?
It definitely was difficult at times, but I think in terms of just, I grew a lot as a leader, and just being able to lead my teammates and help them when they were down and just being there for them was something that was really eye-opening for me.
And what are you planning on doing with lacrosse now that you're graduating and moving on?
I'm actually going to be doing some coaching, so I'm excited to get back into the coaching world, see what that's like. And I think I just am excited to give back to lacrosse and just see what everything's like.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
This is Katie with the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to Alexis Kiefer for taking the time to come in and talk with us. So, Zach, looking at this lacrosse team on the whole, can't say we have quite the amount of positives to discuss that we would like to. Finish the season 2-15, which is never what you want to see, but they did little consolation, they did pick up that Eastern Michigan win towards the end of the season. Because if you look at it this way, they won their season opener against Howard, and then they went on a crazy losing streak after that. Yeah. So I think that one win at the end of the season, granted this is consolation and nothing more, but it is nice that they at least got that one win towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and just when we talked earlier this season about it, they got this Howard game. They got off to a really hot start, and it looked like they were setting up for a good season. And just unfortunately, with the way things went, it was just injuries left and right. The amount of ACL tears that were on this team is unfortunately uncountable. And it was like that sparked a lot of these losing streaks. This losing streak they went on, and but I just have to hang it on to give props to the seniors that were on this team just for keeping the team level-headed, and even though they lost a lot of games here, it's like they had so many close games along the way that 2 wins doesn't tell the whole story.
It doesn't. There's countless games in here that they lost by. They had a 12-13 loss, a 10-12, 4-5, 9-10. So it's just, as you said, it doesn't tell the whole story. Yeah. And as you mentioned a little bit ago, we do need to bring up the injuries, because I don't want to be like that to just blame the entire season on injuries, but it would be a lie to say that it didn't make a difference. I mean, you look at someone like Jalen Clinkscales, she had a really, really good start to the season, 13 goals in her first 10 games, and then she goes down, and it's really hard to kind of find that offensive production without her. And same story with Noelle Boyd. If you look at last season, Noelle Boyd was probably our single biggest contributor, or at least one of them, and she has 4 games played on the season. And, and in those 4 games, she was still great, 7 goals, 2 assists. But if you're not keeping your best players healthy, you're not going to win. So
Yeah.
it's pretty tough right there. We do have to give props to Alexis Kiefer, who we just interviewed. Absolutely tremendous season from her. 32 goals in 16 games played, which is just tremendous.
As a midfielder.
And I actually remember when I first started discussing lacrosse on this show last spring, she was the MAC Offensive Preseason Player of the Year last year. So this is a player that has a very high ceiling and a lot of capabilities. And the team success might not have been there, but at least we've had some single nice performances to kind of spotlight.
And I guess I just want to say that I think the adversity this team went through, I think it'll be good for the future of the program, just with the amount of seniors. I think they had 12 seniors that were graduating, which I guess was a big blow to their team. But at the same time, it was a lot of seniors and a lot of freshmen. It was a relatively young team, and also we saw their head coach not bringing them back after the season. So that could create an interesting,
Yeah, you always like to think you get a new coaching staff in there and maybe get a fresh start. We've seen that with softball this season with Craig Nicholson. Softball wasn't awful last year or anything, but they've been a lot better, and I think a lot of that is due to the new coaching staff. So hopefully we can kind of get that kind of turnaround that we need, that fresh start with the lacrosse team. But I'm going to be semi-optimistic because, no offense, but it'll be hard to have a worse season than they did this year. So I think we'll see some improvements, moving forward.
And really, it'll just come down to if they can stay healthy next season, and if they're able to stay healthy next season with a new head coach, and especially with a lot of these freshmen and younger players, they've had the chance to gel a little bit here. So we'll look for them to carry that into this season, and hopefully it'll create for some exciting action.
If you got a lot of freshmen too, they're going to grow together and really develop together. So that's always a good thing. So I don't think we need to touch up on lacrosse much more, but there is something else I want to bring up here. I know it's not basketball season, but some news, some fresh news. Ali is returning to the Akron Zips.
Yeah.
Not what I was expecting to wake up and see this morning, but I'm not going to complain in the slightest. For anybody who doesn't know, in the 2020 to 2021 season, the season after that, Ali was he made up a big three with Enrique and Castaneda. So if you just look at the team this past season, you're not familiar with Ali because he transferred to to Butler after they won the MAC. But we talked about how they're losing Castaneda. They're bringing Ali back. And that alone is going to be so huge for this team. And I already feel so much more confident and optimistic that this team is really going to have a good season next year.
And Caleb Thornton was a dog from NIU, transferring over as well.
Caleb Thornton as well, the MAC leader in assists, is coming to Akron. So on top of returning players like Enrique and Sammy Hunter, I feel really good about the direction this team is heading. Even with the women's team, new head coach, we talked, they have some uncertainty with maybe the roster itself with how much they're graduating. But new head coach, I'm confident that might take a bit of time, but they'll find that groove and really have some good seasons moving forward. So anything final to add with basketball or lacrosse or anything?
It's with women's basketball. They got a new coach there, and they got a big transfer there from I can't remember if she transferred. The girl who played at Hope, and I can't remember her name now. Just big transfer they picked up this season. Just slipped my mind.
But they'll be making some waves for sure. And I'm just very excited to see. This entire Zips Athletics program as a whole, I think, is in a good spot right now. Looking forward to soccer next season, but unfortunately, we can only talk for so much up here, and we're kind of running out of time. So that'll do it for this season of the ZTV Sports Report. As always, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ZTV Sports, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at ZTV Sports Report. I'm Max Heresy.
I'm Zach Leininger.
And thank you for watching another amazing season of the ZTV Sports Report. Go Zips!
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.